This is The Road Show, and I'm your host, David Warren. Well, it's that time of year again. Time to put on a sweater and time to talk about the oldest continuously published periodical in North America, the Old Farmer's Almanac. Joining us for the first time is Carol Conner, the brand new editor of the Almanac and the 14th editor since it began back in 1792. The new 2024 edition of the OFA is now available, and as expected, we'll give you a full roadshow review. Let's get started by welcoming, for the first of hopefully many years and many times, Carol Conner. Welcome to the program, Carol.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for having me, David.
Well, I fell in love with your predecessors. I've been hosting an annual show with the Almanac editor for about 30 years now, first with Judd Hale, and then with Janice Stillman. So those are some pretty big shoes you have to fill.
They are, and luckily both of those people are still around for my mentoring needs if I need them, though Janice is happily retired and had quite a wonderful legacy here at the Old Farmer's Almanac, and Judd Hale before her. And, of course, you know, I'm lucky to know them both and to be stepping into a tradition. And, you know, well supported, I will say. It's a real team. It's not just me. And so that feels good.
Well, I was reading about you, and I see that you have worked for many years at the sister publication. I remember hearing Judd talk about overseeing Yankee magazine, so you were a part of that for many years. So it just kind of seems like a natural transition. Tell us about the day you were offered the position as the main person at the Almanac.
Oh, it was a dream come true, really, when Shireen, the publisher, who's a very talented person in her own right and has been at Yankee Publishing for a long time, Shireen Pierce. So someone I also knew, because in the business, I'm called a boomerang. I came back after 23 years. And so, there's an official word. But when Shireen called me, it was a dream come true. It was a perfect time in my life. I had been in higher ed for 20 years, and time to make a change. And to come home to Yankee Publishing and to the Old Farmer's Almanac is just a complete honor. And all the subject areas really are near and dear to my heart. You know, our bread and butter is weather and gardening and astronomy, and so those areas are things that I do, you know, and so that I've built my skill set over the years. So that's a really good fit as well.
And for those who don't remember, the Old Farmer's Almanac is based in Dublin, New Hampshire, and you are a New Hampshire gal, and so you were raised right in that neck of the woods, as we say in Oklahoma.
I was. It's the homecoming. So I've been in Massachusetts I've been across the border for 20 years or a little bit more. And so it's really fun. I'll be moving back next year, though I don't know how it is in Oklahoma, but certainly it's a challenging real estate market around here these days. So that'll be an adventure.
Well, something I'm not picking up on that Janice definitely had, and that was a Yankee accent. And I'm sure I sound Southern to you. And, of course, Janice always sounded like a Yankee. Of course, I love Janice. But I'm not hearing that in your voice, Carol.
I know. Well, she's really got an accent from the eastern part of New England, really eastern Massachusetts, where she's from, and she lives now in Attleboro. It's really more out toward the coast, and so that's a very classic. And I'm more from the middle part of New Hampshire, which people kind of say that you're sort of accent-less, which is, I don't know, that feels like too vanilla, but but I have family in the South. I have a lot of family in South Carolina, so when I go there, I start speaking like them, and that lasts for a few weeks too when I come home.
Well, that's fun. You don't know this about me yet, but the first thing that I like to open up to is the letter to the patrons, because I have followed Janice and previously Judd for so many years, and it's just a great letter from the heart to the readers of the Old Farmer's Almanac. And so this was Janice's final letter, and then I'll be looking for your letter next year, Carol. But she called herself Very Lucky 13, and that's in reference to being the 13th editor since 1792. And she wrote that one of her first assignments was to read every edition. Now, we're up to number 232. I hope you did not have to have that same homework, Carol.
I'm still working on it. but a neat thing that we do, and people that are in our clubs, they know this. So when the new issue comes out, we also do a historical reprint of 100 years earlier and 200 years earlier. So I have been reading, as we've done that, I think the last 10 years. So I've been reading all of those because it's a really nice printed piece as well, and it's awesome to see how things change and don't change. So over 100 years, even twice, So that's been fascinating to actually get acquainted with all the issues that way.
Well, we're always looking for things to talk about here on the radio, and it crossed my mind that would be something that I would be interested in here for using on air, and I would think teachers across the country. Is that available to the public to purchase, like, for example, the 1924 and the 1824 almanacs?
Yes, it's in our clubs. It's if you go to almanac.com and you search for the almanac, a club comes up, and you can just buy the almanac with those. I think it's the hardcover version. It's a really nice set. The historical ones are like they were. They're just, and I can send you some, David. They're really nice. They're printed as they were, a nice just paper bound copy. And like I said, just to see the things that, it's really almost astonishing to see the things that haven't changed, to be honest with you. And that gives me a lot of hope.
I want to read one more thing that Janice wrote in her final letter to the patrons. She said, "I thought that I had a good idea in 2005 when I transposed the weather forecasts, usually in the back, with the calendar pages always up front. For giving the predictions prominence, I expected a windfall of reader appreciation. Instead, I raised a windstorm of criticism such as, 'The almanac is a calendar. Weather should never supplant the calendar. Don't you know your job, Janice Stillman?' Luckily, circulation held steady, and I endured the tempest." And something really unique is, change is always present. You've always got to be planning for the future, but you have a really interesting position as an editor to bring in the new to a periodical that has the word old in it. What a position you're in, Carol.
That's really how we talk about our mission. Who are we for? And we're for people that want to learn from the past and tradition, yet also want to apply that in new ways. So we always have to have that mix, which is super fun as the editor. And we do have several hundred years of trusted, fact-checked knowledge to rely upon. Things do change, as you said, but things like how to get a seed to grow, that actually doesn't really change. Mm-hmm. Thank goodness.
Well, Carol, it's been a whole year since we talked about the Old Farmer's Almanac here on Oasis Radio Network, so let's review some of the pertinent information for our listeners, me included. Tell us why this periodical was created back in 1792.
That's right, when George Washington was president. That's when we started. And so really in those days, everybody was a farmer. People grew their own food. Mm-hmm. And in those days also, a typical household would probably have the Bible and an almanac, and that really might be it for your reading matter. Mm-hmm. And so this was always started out as a calendar of the heavens, and to help the farmer grow, needing to know, what long range weather can I expect? That's really important for someone trying to grow crops to feed themselves or for market. And so, that's the kind of very basic. And also, how do I keep myself and my family well? Home remedies have always been a backbone of the publication because of that as well. We didn't have a lot of doctors when North America was getting going.
Right.
And so, but at that time, almanacs, there were several. Obviously, there was more than one almanac because they tended to have good regional information too. Things like tides and not train schedules in the 1700s, but in the 1800s certainly, and things like when schools let out or when courts would meet. So those were really important things for everybody to know. And so that's really the beginning. And so we're often asked, why did we survive? We are the oldest published periodical. And so we really think the genius of Robert Thomas, who was our founder. And he was the editor he's the big shoes to fill. That was over 50 years. And, during that time, basically his weather forecasts were probably better. And we think also the degree of humor that he brought. He always had something in there to bring cheer, and people needed that, of course, in the darkest days.
Have you ever sat with a cup of coffee, Carol, and just thought, I am holding the same administrative position as the founder of the Old Farmer's Almanac, Robert B. Thomas? That's your job.
Yeah, the coffee starts to shake a little.
Well, that's just to create some foam on top in this modern era. Hey, so Robert B. Thomas his picture, his drawing of him is on the cover of the Almanac, but to the left of him on the Almanac is Benjamin Franklin, who did not found the Old Farmer's Almanac. Tell us why he gets to be on the cover as well.
Well, he gets to be on the cover because he was an almanac maker as well. And why not? I mean, he was a genius. So at the time that these almanacs were going, they all copied each other. And so really it's our nod to him. Yes, he didn't continue with his, I think it was Poor Richard's Almanac, but he, too, is a major founder of this idea of learning more about the earth, the planets, and really nurturing that knowledge and those skills and that curiosity and that lifelong learning. And so to us, they both embody that.
One of the things I appreciate about the Old Farmer's Almanac is you can spot it across the room in a bookstore. You guys really hold that pattern because it's such a classic look. I mean, it's a part of Americana. Yellow with the drawings on the cover. And I want to mention that there are different editions. I appreciate that classic edition, and it still has the hole in it, correct?
It does.
Now, I say that because I have what's called an online edition. I cheat, and I want mine in 2 days from Amazon Prime, so I have a little different edition, but I always love that classic edition and the story of, first of all, it has a hole in the top left corner because people used to hang their almanacs in a variety of locations in their home or maybe in the outhouse. We don't know. Mm-hmm. But I think one of the years I talked with either Janice or it might have been Judd Hale that you guys were thinking, well, we could save some money if we didn't have to punch these holes in these thousands of almanacs. And that didn't go over well. So I guess the hole stays. Is that the verdict?
The whole stays, yes, David. Well, and as you pointed out, we have several editions. So in the hardcover edition, we don't have the hole to hang it, and we don't have that in the trade edition, which is a print edition also available on Amazon. And that one is a little bit brighter paper, a little bit bigger print. A lot of people ask us, what about a large print issue? And so, our answer is what you have, the e-version. You can zoom and you can blow that up, to a bigger size. So there's that. But yes, the very traditional, both in the Canadian and the U.S. editions have the whole, and it would save us thousands of dollars, but our readers don't want that. And, I think it's generational. My nephew is in his 30s. He lives in Kentucky, and, he got his almanac, and he sent me a picture, hanging in his barn on a nail. So
great.
He needed the whole version.
I love that. Now, you guys still have the big red barn, right?
Yes.
And is there still a camcorder on it?
Yes, we have the webcam, the parking lot webcam.
And people can watch you guys online at almanac.com?
Yes, not a lot happens, though. What's kind of fun, and I can see it right out my window, is that when travelers come through, they often, if they're fans of Yankee Publishing and they know about the cam, they'll pull in our parking lot and stand. We have of course, we have a sundial, of course, and they stand there and wait until they come on the cam. It's got, a few seconds delay, and then they might dance around. So we have a good time. That's probably the most excitement that happens in our parking lot is the webcam people who come and want to see themselves on the cam.
And you know what? You can keep an eye on your employees and see if they're arriving and leaving on time,
That's
Carol.
Right.
Now,
That's right.
I am an audible.com guy, and I have wondered about this, but with things like the calendar pages in the almanac, would this be doable as an audiobook?
You are prescient. And I as the new editor, they don't want me to revolutionize anything, which that's fine with me. It's not broken. We don't need to fix anything with the Almanac. But I've been wondering about accessibility, and because we do get questions about size, and I think it would be wonderful if parts of the Almanac would just be downloadable to subscribers, right? To hear, because we all tend to put something in our ears, or when we're driving, it's nice, especially things that have some lyricism to them. The farmer calendar essays. And certainly the longer features, this one on ocean currents. So I like your thinking, and I think that's a direction we'll move.
Well, you have a lovely voice. I don't know if you have enough time to read the book, but I vote for you to read the book.
Thanks.
I'll be looking for that. Okay, I'm going to say, do you remember, Carol, back when we spoke about the 2024 Almanac and we discussed this? But I think that would be super cool.
I love it.
I vote yes. All right. Well, Carol Conair is our very special guest with us today. Again, she is the new editor of the Old Farmer's Almanac. She's the 14th editor and the second female editor since 1792. And we're talking about the 223rd edition, also known as the Old Farmer's Almanac for 2024. And before we go to break here, tell us where we can get the Almanac, Carol.
Well, it's on newsstands. It's in bookstores and also places where you get your gardening supplies like Tractor Supply. Almanac.com is a great place to get it. And also Amazon.
Excellent. Well, I'm David Warren with Carol Conair. And coming up is our annual Almanac flip-through, including predicted trends for 2024. Back after this. I'm David Warren here with some exciting news for Oasis listeners. We have a new mobile device app. It's free, easy to download, and lets you enjoy our refreshing music and talk everywhere you go. If you have an Android cell phone, go to the Google Play Store. And if you have an iPhone or iPad, visit the Apple Store and search for Oasis Radio Network. Be an Oasis ambassador and share this news with family and friends around the world. Well, it's Almanac Day here on the Roadshow. Need I say, Old Farmer's Almanac? I better say that. The 2024 edition is available on newsstands, at bookstores, on the website almanac.com. And for us old-fashioned folks, you could even call 1-800-ALMANAC. And Carol Conair is with us, the new editor at the OFA. Now, do people call and order the Almanac over the phone, Carol, or is that old-fashioned?
They do. We'll give you the Almanac any way you would like to get it. If you want to send it, people send us checks. Do they call? I think that they do. We get more calls with questions of things like, I don't have my Almanac with me, and is today a good day to put up my sauerkraut? We get more phone calls like that.
Oh, my goodness.
But
what a patient.
I think people are good at finding their Almanac.
You know, your receptionist has to be very patient if that's the kind of calls he or she is receiving. So I'm sure you have a very good one. You know what? I'm going to try that sometime. I'll come up with some question and report back to you, Carol, how it was handled, okay?
All right. Might get me.
Well, I hope so. Well, let's start on the farm as we're talking about trends for 2024, and the farm is the obvious place to start as we're talking about the Old Farmer's Almanac. And here's a buzzword, grocers. These are grocery stores that sell produce from on-site indoor farms. What appeals to you about what's new in the world of farming, Carol?
Well, as you know, this is, of course, right the core of our business and thinking about what's going on, both for backyard gardeners, but also, the larger farm community. And I think there's some really interesting things going on, that direct-to-consumer that you just mentioned. But we all know that farms are really seeing the front line of that, of a worker shortage. And so, but we're also seeing technology step up. And so that there is more technology being applied to farming. I've seen fully automated dairies, which actually end up providing better care than, maybe sometimes humans can who can't get there or things happen. And so that's a very interesting thing that's happening, I see, in the farming landscape.
And farmers are becoming forward thinkers. They're using precision agriculture with sensors and data analysis to optimize production and reduce costs. Also, farmers are farming vertically in controlled indoor environments near urban centers for year-round crop production. And Carol, farmers are everywhere. I'll read a couple here about things about them. Farmers are demonstrating apple cidering, beekeeping, and maple sugaring to library patrons. And people are loaning their yards to students who grow food there and then donate it to the community and or to schools for use in cooking classes. What a clever idea.
It's so amazing. I have visited a farm in Vermont, Hildene. It's actually Robert Todd Lincoln's estate, the son of Abraham Lincoln, and that's what they do. They bring the high schoolers in, they learn how to grow, they bring the produce home, they cook. It's this full cycle. It's just, and to see this growing everywhere is an incredibly hopeful thing.
Well, if we don't have enough space for a farm, the second best thing is a garden. And over here on page 8, you all talk about the trends for 2024. You would think that something as old as gardening would just stay the same, but there are new things happening. Carol?
I think the coming to our senses is something we're seeing across the board. This is gardeners wanting a wider array of sensory experiences with their plants, so sniffing and scrunching of aromatic leaves and textures like lilac and lavender, anise, hyssop. They're making a comeback, and we see science on this, that aromatherapy really has an effect on people, so people are just doing this naturally in their own gardens.
Here's a buzzword regarding gardening: yard sharing. These are landowners who allow growers to use their property in exchange for free or discounted produce. What a great idea. Okay, I want to read about Easy Does It in our gardens. On page 10, robots are making garden chores easier by locating and eliminating broadleaf weeds, and, are you ready for this? Robots are mowing the lawn. Now,
Yay!
I don't want robots to take our jobs, but that's one job I would like a robot to take, in my place at least. Carol?
I'm with you, 100%.
All right. Here on page 12, what will we be eating in 2024?
Ooh. Well, I think that people are really mindful about food waste, so we're going to see a lot of upcycled products. We have this from Sylvain Charlebois, PhD, that using stale bread for croutons, making vegetable broths from scraps. We're going to see a lot of that in products coming out.
All right. And also, people are looking to up their home cooking game in easy ways, such as using high-quality salts, oils, spices, meal starters, and condiments. And they're going to use everything from cold-pressed almond oil to finishing salts. All right, let's talk a little bit about money over here on page 15. Wallets, watch out. People who drank a complimentary cup of caffeinated coffee before shopping spent more and bought more items than those who had chosen decaf or water. So don't be drinking coffee and buying stuff.
I like financial relationships here. We have 43% of Americans in relationships say that their significant other doesn't know everything about their spending.
Uh-oh. And here's a buzzword: nesting renters. Now, I am one of these, by the way. A nesting renter is someone who upgrades their living space despite not owning it. So I live in an apartment, but I put some stuff in there that I won't be able to take away with me, but the person after me will sure love it. Okay, over here on page 16, around the house. Here's a buzzword for 2024 regarding our houses: biophilic. It's a type of design that incorporates nature into the home. Tell us about homes in 2024.
Well, I think, again, that idea is about the RX. We have relax. People are using plants and natural materials, adding spa bathrooms and retreat spaces for exercise and meditation. I think this is a little bit of the long tail of the pandemic. People really appreciating their home spaces. People need things like car charging stations, pantry space, and outdoor kitchens. These are things that people are adding. And then, again, you're going to see the robotics. Beds will rise to reveal couches and tables underneath, walls with an entertainment center on one side and storage or shelving on the other. They can glide or track to conceal or reveal space. How cool.
Excellent. And some fresh ideas for our homes. Photo frames that charge phones. Gas fireplaces suspended from ceilings. Scent styling. This is fragrances for various rooms. And chairs with the bookshelves and reading lights built in. Well, we're going to jump over here to page 20 and talk about our animal friends for 2024. We can't forget about them. Now, I know that Janice never had a pet the whole time I spoke with her. Do you have a pet, Carol?
Oh, I do. I happen to have the best dog in the world. His name is Jack.
Okay. Tell us about Jack.
Well, Jack is a rescue from, I think somebody got him during COVID, and then they were unable to take care of him. So he's a pit bull mix, and he's the sweetest boy ever. But he had some issues. He had a stroke. I've never heard of a thing with a dog. So he couldn't walk for a bit, but he's basically back to normal. So he's also this inspiring hero. But I'm someone who experiences the buzzword petflation. The cost of owning a pet has definitely gone up. And so people are really feeling that crunch. But I also think the other thing that I've seen and that we wrote about, but if anyone's traveled, you see so many pet-friendly hotels and other destinations, and certainly traveling on planes. I see a lot of animals, mostly dogs, on planes.
Here's a fact about dogs, that they can detect stress from their owner's scent. So do you think Jack knows when you're stressed out, Carol?
Absolutely. That's when he comes in for the snuggle.
And also being studied regarding dogs, do they affect our health by changing our brain activity? And I think about everybody will say, yes, they do. I'm going to skip over here to page 26. Speaking of brain activity, talking about the health outlook for 2024, the mental health field is actively looking at video games to treat diseases in lieu of medication. That's very interesting, Carol.
Well, we see gaming, in a lot of areas in our lives, and if this has success, gosh, we know we need to probably use multi-pronged approaches to this. So that's a good news item.
All right, we're going to finish up here on page 28 and also page 29. Fashion. People are personalizing clothing with embroidery, patches, and yarn mending, and they're also personalizing their clothing by painting it or dyeing the fabric. So, before we take our break, what will women be wearing in 2024, Carol?
Oof, what are they going to wear? They're going to wear clothing that will suit their fluid lifestyles. We know a lot of people are blending work and home as workplaces. We have trousers that will be cinched at the ankle, and tailored pants will have elasticized waistbands.
All right, how about for men?
Oh, sorry, that was I think for everybody. We're predicting denim tuxedos, green loafers. Oh, that sounds fun. Chambray shirts paired with track pants. That's a unique look. Khakis, loose fitting and cropped.
And it's all about minimalism
and casual
for 2024. So, would you say that the Old Farmer's Almanac work environment is casual? In my mind, it is. If you have a barn there.
Yes, it's very outdoorsy because, we're in the highest elevation town in New Hampshire. It's not quite 2,000 feet, but so if you go for a walk at lunchtime, which many people do, you better have your hiking shoes on.
Oh, that's great. What do you see when you look out the window? Paint a picture for us listening around the country.
Well, it's not too, we see that parking lot, and I do see a Route 101, which is our east-west route in the southern part of the state, but it's actually quite beautiful. And across the road is the town library. It's a gorgeous little stone gem of a building, and beside that is a historic old white building, and that's the town offices. And today, we still are seeing so much fall color. It's really hung on, and we're looking at rare for here, 70 degrees, and maybe even warmer for the next few days.
All right. Well, when we repeat this in the future, just know that we taped this a little while back. I'm David Warren, talking by phone with the editor of the Old Farmer's Almanac, Carol Conner. When we come back on today's Roadshow, we're going to give you this winter's and next summer's for 2024, the forecasts for our various listening areas. Now, you've heard me say it for many years. The OFA boasts of an 80% accuracy rate with its weather forecasting. Carol and I will discuss that right after this.
The Roadshow is a listener favorite which airs each weekday here on the Oasis Radio Network starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central. The Roadshow also has a great section on our website, oasisnetwork.org. There you'll find audio archives of select past interviews, plus guest lineup and contact information, and links to our Roadshow sponsors and its host. So join us for the Roadshow, whether on your radio, computer, or mobile device at oasisnetwork.org.
Well, today's guest is Carol Conner, the new and 14th editor of the Old Farmer's Almanac, and I am David Warren, your host on today's program. And Carol and I just opened a can of worms, as we say in Oklahoma, or maybe Pandora's box during that break, and we're just kind of brainstorming for the Almanac, and you mentioned about maybe starting a podcast, but I think people would really enjoy that type of conversation. I think it's a missing item in our podcast world. Carol?
I agree. And, Janice, who you knew very well, the former editor, Janice Stillman, she proudly said she'd never had a smartphone. So I'm also the first editor with a smartphone. And so I think, we don't do things overnight here, but I'm very committed to accessibility, and I feel like podcasting or having downloadable material to just listen to would be a very, very good way to make sure that anybody who would like to, hear our material and get at it would be able to get at it.
By the way, Carol, am I pronouncing your name correctly, Conair?
Yes.
Okay. Where does that name come from?
Well, I'm actually Irish.
Okay.
It was O'Connor, and then, like so many, the O went away when we made it over to America.
Okay. Well, I was reading online about the Almanac recently, about the different things that each editor brought that was new, to the Almanac. And, of course, I kind of focused on Judd and Janice, your predecessors. And Judd was the one who introduced the trends section that we just read a few moments ago and have for many, many years here on the Road Show. And then Janice, on her watch, brought the Almanac into the digital age, meaning almanac.com. And so I think that maybe, at least in my opinion, Carol Canera will be bringing the Almanac into the audio age.
Ooh, nice. That's a good challenge.
Yeah, so podcasting and Audible books. So again, I'll be watching for those. So what do you enjoy about your job the most so far?
I enjoy so many aspects of it, but I think it's our commitment to getting it right. We have, yes, it's very fun to think about story ideas and get them done, but we have the most rigorous fact-checking and copy editing and personal touch. We're not necessarily LL Bean, but, you can call us and we will get back to you. Certainly, we have millions of people that go to almanac.com, which is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages of free gardening and weather and astronomy and cooking. And so those things, just being in touch with people that have similar passions is really great. So that's kind of a typical day, really. That's
called changing hats quickly. What do you think is the most challenging part of your job?
Oh, I think keeping pace, the business realities of, we've seen the newsstand shrink. Those are always going to be challenges. The cost, people see inflation in their own households. We've certainly seen it on the business side. The cost of printing and getting our almanac out to stores has gone up. So those are just challenges, per se. But I think, like other businesses, we've come to embrace a hybrid workplace. And so as the leader, I really want to pay attention to building community here in the office space, even when people are here just a few days a week. One nice thing that we do is I'm here 5 days, but our whole staff, we do come together for at least 3 days in those same days. And so it's maybe not something people expect, but I think that's important. Also, we are extensive and exhaustive in our own reference materials and collecting knowledge. And so, keeping up with that in an ever-changing publishing world and chasing of facts, is always a challenge.
Interesting. Well, one of the challenges is weather forecasting as far out as you all do it. Now, tell us how many months out you're forecasting.
Oh, really? It's 18 months.
Imagine, folks, 18 months trying to predict the weather. Now, let me just say this. Last year's accuracy rate for predicting temperatures was 39%. Now, that was kind of a nosedive from the previous year, but for precipitation,
yes,
it was 100% accurate, which is a total triumph for an overall accuracy rate of 70%, a tad lower than the traditional average of 80%, but a definite shout-out goes to meteorologists Bob Smerbeck and Brian Thompson for their outstanding work at the Old Farmer's Almanac. What say you, Carol?
Oh, I can't tell you weather is, if you garden or do anything, or really just do anything outside, it's easy to become weather obsessive. I think it's an incredible, many people are familiar with short range meteorology, but the sciences that we use are fascinating to do the long-range weather. We are talking about historical patterns. We're talking about sun science, and we have a story in the new issue about ocean currents. And so I think what you're seeing with that temperature, and we've talked a lot with Bob and Brian, our weather-wise folks, about this is we're really needing to make up for both Canada and the U.S. put out weather normals, and they do that every 10 years. But what we're seeing is that's not quick enough to catch the temperature fluctuations that are happening. And so that's where I think that is. And so we've been talking about, okay, we need to make different adjustments in that area. But yeah, the science, as you say, 18 months out, it's really that combination of data and crunching that data, in all kinds of cool and creative ways. And that was done by Robert B. Thomas very similarly, but by hand. He was really a mathematician.
Back in 1792. Well, here are the forecasts for our FM station listening areas for winter 2023 going into 2024. And this is a first. I never remember this happening in 30 years of doing an annual Almanac Roadshow, and that is for all of our FM station. If you're listening to a radio, folks, let me just say it that way, it's going to be cold and snowy. I mean, because a huge part of the U.S. will be cold and snowy this winter. And then for summer of 2024, it does vary a tad. For our Oklahomans listening, it's going to be cool and rainy. For the Ozarks, our friends there, it's going to be hot and dry. For our friends in Ohio, it will be hot and rainy. Also for our friends in Virginia, hot and rainy. Well, we're talking about the Old Farmer's Almanac, and the new 2024 edition is available on newsstands, bookstores, almanac.com, and 1-800-ALMANAC, where they answer all your questions about sauerkraut. No, please don't call them if you don't need to. Well, I'm David Warren, and my special guest on today's program is the editor of the Old Farmer's Almanac, Carol Conner. After the break, we're going to announce this year's winners of the annual recipe and essay contests. Back after this. I'm David Warren, Program Director at Oasis Radio Network and one of the hosts of this podcast. All of our hosts enjoy hearing from you, our listening family, so drop us a note. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast and you'll receive new episodes on your mobile devices. And now, back to the show. Well, it's Old Farmer's Almanac Day on the Road Show, and everything Almanac is found on almanac.com. And would you like to put in a plug for your website, Carol Conner, new editor at the Almanac?
Absolutely. Almanac.com is amazing. It's 12.4 million unique users. I mean, it's very well trafficked because everything there is usable information: gardening, astronomy, weather, long range, even 60 days out forecast. We know weather is just so important to our almanac friends, but also lots of good recipes and seasonal things. And one of the biggest things that is in this issue is about the eclipse happening in April. So
Yes.
We've got a lot of stories on that too.
Yes, one of the articles is called "Behold Nature's Greatest Event," and Carol is referring to the total eclipse of the sun, which will take place, mark it on your calendars, April the 8th of 2024. Well, let's talk a little bit more about food now and announce the 2023 recipe contest winners, and it was all about recipes containing ginger. And I didn't know what I would feel about that, but I really think these sound yummy. Tell us about the winners.
Okay, and we don't have the names on the same page, so the first prize,
And I have it here.
Ginger gremolado baked salmon.
Okay.
And the picture looks amazing, and it's just a beautiful salsa, ginger infused salsa for a very nice and healthy, delicious baked salmon. And second prize is the Thai ginger meatball salad. These meatballs, we tested these. These are addictive. So I'll just lay that out there.
Okay.
And then the third prize is, who doesn't love a fruit crisp? This is a ginger peach crisp with ginger-infused whipped cream. And this is really nice. It's got both ginger in the topping and in the fruit. But what I really recommend is you can use dried or candied, but really go for the fresh if you can. And then the honorable mention is the ginger swirl buns, which are covered with a gorgeous icing.
Well, that sounds yummy. I would eat any of these, and I'm not just saying that because I'm talking to you today. They all look delicious. Let's talk about the recipe contest for 2024. It's a unique one this time.
Yeah. It's your best holiday recipe.
No matter what holiday.
Right. So it could be Easter. It could be Valentine's Day. It could be maybe you make a Flag Day cake. Who knows? We know we have flag lovers out there. So
I love it.
Let's see what people got. Send them in.
All right. And so there's a first, second, and third prize winner. You get some cash, I believe, if I remember correctly.
You get cash and some bragging rights, which is almost even more valuable.
Yeah, and you might even make it on the Old Farmer's Almanac podcast with Carol. You never know.
Right.
You never know. Okay, so we want to have Carol, as is tradition, of the editor, the person in the main chair at the Old Farmer's Almanac, read the first prize winner of the annual essay contest. And for this last year, it was about a funny thing that happened to me. And this funny thing happened to a guy named Bruce Kubeck from Longwood, Florida, and he won the first prize. Read it to us, if you would, Carol.
Okay. Bruce says, I had 2 short hours until my wedding. People milled around my dad's house getting dressed and making last-minute preparations. My youngest sister scurried into my bedroom and wanted to know if my shoes were polished. Huh? I had other things on my mind, so I shrugged and pointed to the closet. She snatched the shoes and promised to return right away. An hour later, in stocking feet, I found my sister and the shoes. She said that the polish was still wet and insisted that she help me put them on. Worried about other things, I shrugged and agreed. They didn't seem any more polished than before. She knelt, slipped them on my feet, one shoe at a time, and tied the laces. Fast forward an hour. My bride, Nancy, and I walked down the aisle at St. Stephen's and knelt before the priest. The majority of those in the 2 front rows started chuckling. The priest hesitated a couple of seconds, waiting for them to calm down. As it turns out, they chuckled because my sister had used fluorescent pink fingernail polish to write on the soles of my shoes, "Save me and help me."
I love it. And Bruce deserves first place for that. Excellent.
Yes.
Okay.
His sister also deserves an honorable mention.
2024, we have an essay contest once again, and it's about the best money I ever spent. So how can we be a part of the contest, Carol?
All you need to do is follow the rules, and that is just write your entry and send it to us. We give you a 200-word limit, the best money I ever spent, and it's going to come directly to me. I get them also in my inbox. We have, let's see, I'm going to read this for you if people don't see. It's enter at almanac.com/essay contest or at almanac.com recipe contest for the recipes. Then you would just mail to our P.O. Box 520 in Dublin, either essay contest or recipe contest, and the zip code is 03444.
I think it's so cool to have a zip code that starts with 0. That is so foreign to somebody not from the Northeast, Carol, just so you know that. Well, some of the many articles from the new 2024 edition include Farming Today for Tomorrow, and also Secrets to Fun Fishing, We All Flip for Pancakes, Memorable Olympic Moments in celebration of the 2024 Summer Olympics coming up in Paris, France. And my favorite article is Getting the Jump on Leap Day. Yep, 2024 has a leap day, February the 29th. What's your favorite article, Carol?
Ooh, that's a hard one.
I know.
I really love the story on the bouquets, which is really just saying, like, sure, you can make them of flowers, but you can put branches, you could put kale. I do things like that, like letting no bounds be on your bouquets. I like that one.
Well, this has been a great hour together, Carol, and our first time to ever interview. And I just think you are a total delight and such a great fit at the Old Farmer's Almanac. And I'm just real excited that you're there and are going to be a part of such a great American institution.
Thank you, David. And I'll have to have you on my podcast if we get that off the ground.
I would love that. I'll come up with some unique angles. I will. I promise you. So how can we stay connected with you and the fine folks at the Old Farmer's Almanac before we talk next year?
Oh, come and see us at almanac.com, where you'll find lots of wonderful, useful, and fun information. And then don't forget, and in the spring, we're there for you as gardeners, too. We come out with our garden guide in February, which is chock full of ideas for anybody in North America who loves to grow things.
Excellent. Again, the website is almanac.com, and the new 2024 edition of the Old Farmer's Almanac is available now on newsstands, bookstores, and that website, almanac.com. Well, a big thank you once again goes out to Carol Conair. I'm David Warren, and I'm going to be back after this final break to read my favorite article, Getting the Jump on Leap Day. It's widely assumed that leap year, or more specifically leap day, appears on the calendar every 4 years, and that an extra day is added to February in any year that is divisible by 4. But that's not exactly true. I'll explain after this.
I'm Karen Jensen Salisbury, one of the hosts you hear on the Oasis Network Roadshow. For 35 years, this 1 hour of the day has inspired and motivated you, our listeners, with thousands of stories of people whose lives demonstrate the truth that with God, all things are possible. It's an hour that you should make a part of your day, Monday through Friday, starting at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 noon Central. The Roadshow, an Oasis Network presentation.
And we are back. I am David Warren, and I've got my friend Tim Maroney, our sound man, here for this final segment. It's a tradition that we do. Tim joins me for the last few minutes of the annual Almanac show, and I'm just kind of reveling in my first time to interview Carol Conair, the new editor at the Old Farmer's Almanac. I found her to be delightful, as I'm sure you could hear in my voice and how I responded to her. And, you never know what the new person's going to be like, so I am so excited to talk to her once again next year and subsequent years. But congratulations to her on being named the 14th editor since the Old Farmer's Almanac began back in 1792. Again, the OFA is the oldest continuously published periodical in North America. And we were talking about the 232nd edition, which is the 2024 edition, out and available for sale. Well, before the break, I mentioned that I would be reading from the article, my favorite article, Getting the Jump on Leap Day, because 2024 is a leap year. So I'm going to read a little bit about this, and then Tim Maroney, say hello.
Hello.
You're going to read a little bit about Leap Day, and then I'll wrap up with something interesting. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag about what that is quite yet. But again, 2024 is a leap year. It is widely assumed that leap year, or more specifically leap day, appears on the calendar every 4 years, and that an extra day is added to February in any year that is divisible by 4. But that's not exactly true. Leap years are defined by 2 general rules. A year may be a leap year if it is evenly divisible by 4, as is 2024. However, century years, those that are divisible by 100, such as 1900 or 2000, cannot be leap years unless they are also divisible by 400. So the years 1700, 1800, and 1900 were not leap years, while the year 2000 was. That's a lot of math, isn't it? All right, well, the next year that is evenly divisible by 4 that will not have a leap day is the year 2100. So we've got a while until that happens. So, Tim, tell us why we even have a leap day.
Why have a leap day, David Warren? Well, Julius Caesar introduced the Julian calendar in 46 BC. It was created to replace the Roman calendar, which was initially a complicated lunar arrangement based on moon phases. The Julian calendar was not perfect, though. It overestimated the length of the year by more than 11 minutes and installed leap years every 4 years, which was too often. By the mid-1500s, the Julian seasons had shifted by about 10 days. In 1582, Pope Gregory XIII introduced the Gregorian calendar, currently used by much of the world, as a modification to the Julian calendar. its first iteration contained 10 fewer days in October in order to realign with the solar year. In 1752, Britain and her colonies adopted the Gregorian calendar, skipping 11 days in September to be in sync. The Gregorian calendar also instituted the current criteria for adding leap days. In the Gregorian calendar, a year has 365 days, but Earth's orbit around the Sun takes about 365.2422 days. If we didn't add the extra day, February 29th, almost every 4 years, our calendar would once again get out of sync with the astronomical seasons.
And that's why we have February the 29th. And I want to wrap up by talking about leap day babies, those that are born on February 29th. Only 1 out of every 1,461 births occurs on leap day. Peter Anthony Cogue was born in Ireland on leap day in 1940. His son Peter Eric entered the world on February 29, 1964, in the United Kingdom. In 1996, Peter Eric's daughter Bethany became a leap day baby. This is the only documented case of 3 consecutive generations of one family being born on leap day. Wow. Karen Henriksen of Norway can lay claim to the title of the only mom on record to bear 3 children on leap days: Heidi in 1960, Olav in 1964, and Leif Martin in 1968. Folks born on leap day are known as 29ers, leaplings, leapers, and leapsters. The Honor Society of Leap Year Day Babies connects leaplings around the world through social media and leap day events. During non-leap years, leap day birthdays are usually celebrated on February 28th or March the 1st. And now you know. Wow, what a great time we had on today's program. I want to say a very special thank you once again to Carol Conair, my friend and co-worker at the controls, Tim Maroney. Thank you.
Thank you, David.
Thank you for that insight, the backstory on why we have February 29th.
Why have a leap day.
And thank you to everybody who tunes in, not just today, but every Tuesday and every Monday through Friday to the Roadshow or any time to the Oasis Radio Network. It is because of you that we are here, and we love you very, very much. Well, for Carol Conair, for Tim Maroney, I'm David Warren, and it's been another great Roadshow. You've been listening to The Roadshow. If you'd like to write to us, here's our address: The Roadshow, P.O. Box 1924, Tulsa, Oklahoma 74101. Our email address is roadshow@oasisnetwork.org. The views of today's guest aren't necessarily those of this station, but we do appreciate and thank our guest for spending this time with us. The Roadshow, an Oasis Network presentation.